Hey guys, this is Amit, and today I'm going to give you an introduction to PostgreSQL Database Server, show you how to do the installation on CentOS 7 or Red Hat 7. The PostgreSQL server runs on Linux, OS X, Solaris, and Windows, and I think it comes as a default database server in the OS X. It has a great support for JSON and is often a good alternative to NoSQL databases like MongoDB. It's kind of getting a lot of attention and interest in the recent few years. So let's get started on the installation and see how we can install and manage the database. The operating system I have is CentOS Linux 7.0. I would do the yum install PostgreSQL-server. By default, at the time of this video, the database server that SIPs is the 9.2. You can enable third-party repositories and then get the latest version of the PostgreSQL server if you wanted to. The installation does install the PostgreSQL server itself, the PostgreSQL client, and then the PostgreSQL libraries. The PostgreSQL package comes with some of the utilities that you can use to create database, create user, drop the database, drop user, and then perform the backups. When the package is installed, the PostgreSQL server, it creates a Postgres user on the system with no password by default, and that user happens to be the super user for the database server. If we grep for the Postgres on the etc passwd directory, we can see there is the Postgres user and the home directory is varlib pz-sql. Let's go into the varlib pz-sql directory. You can see there's backups and data directory. The directory that we are interested in is the data directory. As you can see, the data directory is empty for now. All we have to do is we haven't initialized the database yet. So we have to go ahead and run the PostgreSQL setup command with the initdb as the argument. Now it initialized the database and you can see all these files and folders generated here. Out of all these files and folder, the most important ones are the pz_hba.conf, which is the PostgreSQL's host-based authentication configuration file. There's the PostgreSQL.conf, which is the configuration file for the server itself. And there's this pz_log directory where you can find the PostgreSQL log. Now that we have initialized the database, let's make sure that the database server starts on boot. We can do that with the systemctl command. Systemctl enable PostgreSQL. So it creates the required symlink. Now let's go ahead and start systemctl start the PostgreSQL server. The server is started and we can see it's listening on port 5432 by default. You can see here that by default, it listens on the localhost, the loopback address for both IPv4 and IPv6. We'll change that in a minute. Now that we have the database installed and running, we want to make sure that the database is protected. By default, like I mentioned earlier, the Postgres user is the super user. Let's go and check that out. For Postgres, use the PSQL command to get into the console for the PostgreSQL. And there you go. You are logged in without password, anything as such. And then you can see here that the Postgres user is the super user. It can create roles, it can create databases, can do the replication. So we want to go ahead and protect this user with a password. Let's set the password. In Postgres, most of the commands start with a backslash. So let's start with the backslash and we're going to say password Postgres. Set the password. Okay, now we have the password. You type \q to quit. We are still able to log in without typing the password. We need to make a little change on the, actually, let's go back to the root. we are already here. This is the authentication file. The file is well documented. You can read through the file. But for now, let's go to the bottom of this section here is where the configuration is set. You can see that the local user, all, and peer. So the first column is the type, database, user, address, and method. So we can see here the type is local users, system users, database all, user all, peer. Meaning the system will authenticate you based on your Unix identity and not the password. Well, we'll go ahead and change that to MD5. So it'll require password. Save that. You start the PostgreSQL. Let's switch to the Postgres user. And now if we do the PSQL, it requires password. So that gives you an extra layer of protection. Okay, I probably typed the wrong password. There you go. So we are in with the password. Another quick tip here is that you can actually run system commands while you are inside the Postgres console by doing backslash, exclamation, space, and then the command you would like to run. Let's say you want to clear the screen or you want to do the ifconfig, you can just do that. And now to get out of the console, we do the backslash q. Now that we have set up the configuration and authentication, let's go ahead and look into the command line utilities that I was talking about. So these command line utilities can help you execute common tasks without having to logging into the PSQL and executing queries. First off is the create user command that lets you create a user. There's the create DB command that lets you create the database. Similarly, there is drop user command that lets you drop the user. There's drop DB command that lets you drop the database. Similarly, there is the Postgres command itself that executes the server itself, but we don't want to do that because we are using this script to start and stop the server. But you can use this to view the version and you can also see what other options are available using the help section. There are other two utilities that can be very useful, pz_dump and dump all. The pz_dump lets you take a dump of single database, and then the pz_dump all lets you take the dump of the entire database. There are various options available for the dump. All you have to do is do a -- help, and you can see all these options that you can use with the pz_dump and pz_dump all command. You can specify the file name, you can specify the format, you can do the compression level. You can dump data only, you can dump the schema, you can do all kinds of stuff. So I encourage you to look through these options. Coming back to the create user, and drop DB commands, you can actually create user like so, create user test. It'll ask you for your super admin password. It's created the user. Now, similarly, we can do the create DB test. It'll ask you for your password. We go inside the PSQL. If you do the list of the databases, you can see the test database that we just created inside the PostgreSQL. Now you can also do the DU, and you can see that the test user has been created. The only problem with using the command line utilities is that you cannot make a lot of changes using the command line utilities, so you would have to come into the PSQL and make the changes if you wanted to alter the roles and stuff. So I encourage you to use the PSQL query to create and manage databases. However, it's just knowing that the utility exists and it's out there. is a good thing. Now let's go ahead and drop user test. Let's go ahead and drop TB test. Now if you go inside, I keep typing wrong password. So you can see the database is gone and the user is gone. The same way you can now drop the database from here, drop database test. The database is dropped, drop user test. You can drop the user. That's how you manage the users and the privileges. Let's exit out of the console. Now, the next thing I want to cover is enabling remote access. Like I showed earlier, you can see that the Postgres is by default only listening on the loopback address for both IPv4 and IPv6. So first we need to make sure it listens on the interfaces before we can access it from a network. In order to do that, we would need to make some changes to the PostgreSQL.conf. The file is well documented. It's a big file. Um, it's 578 lines, but for now we are looking at the listen directive. Here you can see that this line has been commented out, and by default it only listens on localhost. We'll go ahead and change it to star for now. The port by default is 5432. If you wanted to change the port, you could specify the port configuration parameter there. It's okay to leave it on default. Let's go ahead and restart the PostgreSQL. Now, if we look at we can now see that the PostgreSQL is listening on all the interfaces. Before we can actually access the database from a networked device, you would have to make sure that the firewall allows access to port TCP 5432. Now we can go ahead and edit firewall CMD permanent. We want to make sure it persists and port equals 5432 TCP. Now all you have to do is reload the firewall. As you can see here, the firewall rule is now there and it's accepting traffic on TCP 5432. Now let's see if we can access the server from another box here. So we're going to say PSQL -h to specify the host. Let's see what the IP address is for this guy. 100.43 -u Postgres. Okay, I probably forgot to mention this, and now you can see no pg_hba.conf entry for host user Postgres database Postgres SSL off. So we have not enabled network authentication, network access to the Postgres server. In order to make that change, let's go to hba.conf. We go in here and we're going to say host all. We need to allow access to the network. So we're going to say 192.168.100.0/24 for now. MD5, we want the MD5 authentication. You can specify a single host. You can specify a subnet according to your requirement. Let's go ahead and save it. Systemctl restart PostgreSQL. Now let's try to log in. And as you can see here, we are now able to log into this host with the user Postgres, specify the password, and you can manage the database from here. So that covers the introduction to PostgreSQL Server and the basic configuration and management tasks. I hope this video was useful. If you like this video, like, subscribe, share, and let me know if you have any questions. In my next video, I'm going to show you how to perform the master-slave replication on the PostgreSQL database server. So stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, and let me know if you have any questions or feedback. Thank you for watching.